my name is Nadia. This is Zuko. Cammy's over here. And I make videos about knitting and sewing on this channel. I recently asked you guys what you wanted to see from me, and a couple of you just said Q&A or a knitting chat or something a bit low-key like this. So yeah, I hope you enjoy. I asked over on Instagram for some questions from you guys, and you were very kind to send some over to me. I tend to avoid doing things that involve like audience participation because I don't know, I have this big fear of like nobody participating. And like, it's such a silly fear because I think that I would not judge anybody that didn't have any likes or follows or reactions to things that they posted. But for some reason, for myself, I feel like it says something about me as a person if posts don't do well or people don't, I don't know. It's like a big insecurity of mine. My Instagram and my YouTube is basically just one big rejection sensitivity training. And I'm a lot better than I was, but I used to get so anxious before I'd post anything. Like it could be the most low stakes thing in the world and I would just get so anxious about it. So yeah, thank you for participating and for not making my fears unfounded. But yeah, that's just what goes through my head when I when I have to do these things. I'm going to be knitting whilst we do this. What am I knitting on today? I think I'm going to, in my Cezanne bag, I'm going to continue on the sleeve of my knitted in jumper. I'm like most of the way through one sleeve. Got my knitted in here. Yeah, and this is what I'm knitting on. So this is a florarium sweater knit out of knitted in yarn, held with a strand of mohair, and I'm this way through a sleeve. Now I have to be careful because at some point I want to do colour work on the bottom of the sleeve, so I can't go too far down, but I definitely have a while to go before I need to sort of think about that. So yeah. Got Chiago shorties. What are we knitting on? 4mm. And I'm doing decreases, but I'm making them up. So yeah, I don't know. Let's see. When's my next decrease? I think I said I would do them every 8 now. Okay, so my next round is a decrease round. Cool. I have a coffee. It's an oat milk latte. I've really gotten into V60s recently, but this is not one of those. I can be asked today. There's a cable in front of the viewfinder, so I cannot see at all what I'm doing or if I'm in shot or not. So let's just hope. And you can see just how ridiculously slowly I knit. Not that it's a competition, but yeah, this is why everything takes me so long. And I guess that brings me to my first question. My friend Edith asking why I don't knit continental. Because I learn English. I learn English style, and I specifically learn, what is this? It's not flicking, it's the other one. It's the one where it's like the slowest possible. I would love to know continental. I really would. It looks a lot faster. It looks a lot less, like it looks more ergonomic. It just makes absolutely no sense to me. And when I do it, and I can physically knit continental, it's just my tension is absolutely horrendous. So I would like to maybe knit a few things that like the tension doesn't matter so much, like maybe something I would felt, and then knit those entirely in continental, just get used to it. But yeah, I would really love to make the stitch. The other thing that I saw recently, I think is it what Marielle made? She showed the way that she flicks, and so I think you do this and you do this and then you, I don't know how it works. I don't know how, I just don't know how to tension yarn that way. It's insane. Yeah, no, I just do the most laborious style of knitting, which is literally bringing it over the needle. But you know what? my attention's mostly great, so it is what it is. How do you decide what to make, or like, do I plan my makes in advance? No, not really. But I like run like a chaos system of basically just like collecting lots and lots of references and things that sort of inspire me in various different places, whether that's Pinterest or Instagram saves or screenshots, or I have little burrows of inspo hidden in various different places. I've got a fairly good memory, so I think what I tend to do is that if something has really stuck in my mind in terms of inspiration, then, and it keeps coming back, like it keeps coming back to me, I'm like, oh, I would really like something like that, or I would love to recreate that. It's like all of that inspiration kind of lives in this like simmering pot, and then when it gets to a point where it's boiling over and I'm like, oh, I need this thing in my life, that's when I'm like, okay, I need to make it. And sometimes it will be, like I'm casting off a project and I'm thinking of the next thing that I want to make, and so that's the time that I cast it on. Or same with sewing, like I'm finishing off something and I'm like, okay, what's my next thing? But I also have like a ton of projects going at once. Sometimes I'll start something and I won't finish it for a long time. Like it's very chaotic. There's no real plan. But yeah, I kind of just feel like I also just like take a census of like what I'm seeing on social media and like the things that are in fashion. Like, last year Loewe and a bunch of different designers came out with these like very heavily like stranded color work kind of knits, and they became very mainstream. When I start seeing something a lot, then it kind of embeds itself in my mind, and then I'm like, oh, I would really, it works its way up in my mind, and I'm like, oh, I would really like to knit something that's like stranded, traditional Fair Isle stranded color work. One of my big hobbies is also to sort of like semi-plan knits that I don't want to cast on right now. So like sometimes like I'll fixate on a pattern and then I think about the yarn that I have, and then I'll, and I'll just like, I'll write it down in a notebook somewhere where I'm like, oh, I want to make this sweater with this yarn, and I want to do this with it, and I want to do this like a modification, and that's kind of how it comes to be. I'm not explaining this very well, but it's also, it's not a foolproof system. How are you? Yeah, I'm good. I'm good, thank you. I'm in an all right place. I am prepping for a trip to Japan next week. It's Friday today and I'm leaving on Wednesday, so I've got a fair bit that I want to get done before I go, namely like edit some videos. I'm going for 3 weeks, so that's quite a big trip. And yeah, just generally I'm good. I'm a bit like scattered and just a bit, all over the place, but I think that's because I have this trip coming up, and so I feel like I haven't really like built a routine that I can rely on, because I know that the routine's going to be disrupted, if that makes sense. But I think everything will feel a lot more stable maybe when I get back. And yeah, I'm good. It's been absolutely miserable weather here, just raining. There were a couple of statistics that there hasn't been a day that it hasn't rained in the UK and Ireland. And I know, the rest of the world is the same. Like I saw that in Madrid and in the Netherlands, and it's not just us, but Jesus Christ, the rain has been insane. And when you have 2 dogs and you're walking them every day and you don't have an entranceway, so like your door literally just gives out onto your living room, it's really just like keeping the upkeep of like trying to keep everything not muddy is insane. So it's a bit depressing, but I personally, I'm quite a big fan of winter, so I'm not as susceptible to seasonal depression as the rest of us, I guess. But yeah, still, it's kind of wearing on now. I'm like, I wouldn't mind a bit of spring, a bit of sun. Like, I feel like my skin is really feeling it. Like, I could do with some sunlight. So yeah, so I'm good. So British of me to be asked how I am, and I immediately start talking about the weather. And speaking of dogs, what is my law about the dogs? I'm always happy to talk about the dogs. So I have 2 dogs of the same breed, and I get asked a lot of questions about them in the street and just in general, because they're quite impressive looking, especially when I'm walking the two of them at once. The biggest question I get asked is are they related? Because they look so similar, and no, they're just the same breed. But no, I got them from completely different breeders and like different homes completely. I think Samoyeds just look like carbon copies of each other. So yeah, I think that's just the way it is. And he's looking very cute and cozy there. So Zuko is this guy here. You can see he's looking up a bit. I got him first. He's 10 years old. And I got him at the age of 20, whilst I was still a student in college. Make of that what you will. It wasn't the smartest thing I've ever done, but I think it was what I maybe needed at the time. He's my old man. I got him off of a website called Done Deal, which is like Ireland's Craigslist. He had a hernia, so he was very cheap for a Samoyed. I think usually you have to pay like thousands for a Samoyed, but I got him for like less than €300, which is kind of insane. And yeah, I've had him since he was a puppy. I love him to bits. And then I think it wouldn't have necessarily have been my choice to get a second dog the same breed, because, you know, I love a lot of breeds and there are lots of breeds that I'd love to sort of own in my lifetime. I'm a big fan of Staffies and Rotties and Bernese Mountain Dogs, and I don't know, you name it, I'm a fan of it. But I'm definitely like a big dog kind of person. But we got Cammy, or Cammy as she's more formally known as, when Zuko was 6 years old, and she was my ex-partner's choice, because I think, you know, because Zuko is so well behaved and so calm and chill and just a very good boy. Like, he's very loud. Samoyeds are known for being the loudest dog breed, but he's just generally so good-natured, the friendliest boy. Because we loved him so much, we were like, oh, let's get a second dog of the same breed, and, you know, and we'll just have the same dog again. It'll be really easy and convenient and chill, and yeah. And if you have ever gotten a second dog of the same breed, I think it's usually the way it goes, is that they are absolute lunatics the second time around. Cammy is something else. She is, they're like night and day in terms of personality. Zuko is very shy. I don't know, when I got him, he's always been like this. I've had a lot of people say to me over the years that, you know, he was abused as a dog or as a puppy, or, you know, that he had some kind of fright or trauma, because he's very nervous and he's very skittish. And, you know, he hates like loud noises, or he's very, very shy. And I just, having observed him for, you know, as long as I've had for 10 years, I don't know if it's really anything specific that happened to him, or if it was more that's just his personality. He was a puppy in a 2-litter he was one puppy in a 2-puppy litter. And I think he was the youngest with another female. And I think probably he's just, you know, it's just his personality. He's just a very, very shy boy. And he's gotten a lot better over time. Like, he shows his personality a ton more now, and I feel like he's very comfortable in his skin. But yeah, I mean, for the first 6 years I had him, he was, you know, just always alert and like always ready to go, and always, you know, like you could never step over him. Like, if he was lying down and you tried to walk past, he would get up. Whereas Cammy is like the opposite of that. She's always like upside down and, you know, you can do anything. You can stand over her, you can move her out of the way. She's like, she absolutely doesn't care about that at all. But she's also incredibly hyper, she's very intelligent, which means that she basically runs rings around everyone, and she generally just gets what she wants. Yeah, they couldn't be more different. She's very, very difficult to train, but will pick things up a lot quicker, whereas Zuko's a bit dumb, but he's generally more compliant. They could be more different. And no, I don't know. I ask myself on a daily basis why I have two dogs. I got the dogs in the divorce. It wasn't a divorce, but yeah, I'm kidding. But I got the dogs in the separation, which I'm ecstatic about. Like I wouldn't have it any other way. But yeah, they're a lot of work, and they can be a lot. Like if you're not a big dog person, they're intense. So it kind of limits us in some ways. But yeah, they're like my children. So you're really acting cute today. Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are. Can I get a woo? Can I get a woo? So he will roo, like he will howl like a wolf, and she's at my feet. She doesn't talk unless it's to bark. Yeah, I could talk about this for hours. I love them a lot, as you can tell, but that's the lore. If there's anything else you want to know. Zuko is named after Zuko from The Last Airbender, and Kami is named after Okami, which is a video game that I love. And a kami is also like a god, like a Japanese god. Oh, and yeah, why the breed? Yeah, Samoyeds they're a very interesting breed. The Samoyed people bred them to look after their children at night and to keep them warm at night. And so because of that, they're really good with children. They love children. Kami's obsessed with babies to the point where it's actually like kind of annoying, because she will just like go and run up to them and try and kiss them, which most people don't want. And also their barks are really, really high pitched on purpose so that they can be heard over because I think snow like muffles sound, and so because of that, a Samoyed's bark is like really shrieky. Also, another reason I didn't want a second Samoyed is because the brushing and the upkeep of their fur is intense, and it doesn't help that both of them hate it, despite trying everything that I can in terms of like desensitization and like positive rewarding. Yeah, they just absolutely hate being brushed, and it's an intense, it's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot of work, and also my house is messy all of the time. There's always hair somewhere. You've probably seen in every one of my videos or photos of any of my knits, there's hairs covering it. It's a lifestyle. I think, I just work off of the basis that if you're in my house, then there's going to be hair, and then when I leave the house, I try and sort of brush myself down. But yeah, it's an occupational hazard. You really have to love it. Like it's a lifestyle choice. But yeah, I wouldn't change it. They're my babies, no matter what. Have you ever been told that you look like Kirsten Dunst? Yes. I don't see it personally. I've also been told Saoirse Ronan and Laura Linney. I don't know. But yeah, I don't see it personally myself. Do you try and craft in a sustainable way? I mean, yes and no. I personally don't think the way that I make things is sustainable. I make a lot of things that I don't wear. I make a lot of things for myself, for just one person, more than I can hope to wear or that I personally need to wear in a year. So like if I'm making 10 to 12 jumpers a year, I think I personally think that that's quite excessive. I don't have any need for any more things in my wardrobe ever, probably. If we're talking about like need, like definitely never again. But even in terms of like, to make my wardrobe easier to use, like I still think I have a lot of excess. Like I have shop bought jumpers, and I have a very large collection of hand knit sweaters, a lot of which I don't like or that I don't wear. And I also consume a lot of yarn. Like I buy a lot of yarn, more than I can possibly knit. I mean, I could probably knit through all of it in my lifetime, but definitely like whilst I'm still accumulating more, like there's a lot of excess. That's my personal opinion about my own consumption. Is it more sustainable than the majority of people who, like, am I buying hauls in Zara every week, or, shopping at Shein? No. Am I buying fast fashion? No. Yes, I do try, like if I'm buying clothes, 99% of it is thrifted, and then I'll buy something new only if I know that, like, if it's like a basic, like a white t-shirt or something like that, or if I know that I'm gonna wear it until it falls apart, basically. Yes, but at the same time, I think looking at my own habits, like fashion is a hobby for me, and I think it's where I get a lot of my enjoyment and my fulfillment, and I'm always thinking about it. And so I think in that way, like, it's necessary for me to always sort of have like this like constant in and out flow. But yeah, I think I could do a lot better in terms of the way that I consume. I'm trying to not be so stressed about making things very quickly, and like taking more time and trying to make something that's perfect. And that way I know that I'll wear it a lot, like making real hero pieces. I also, when I was moving, I was seeing a lot of the things that I buy a lot of things in thrift stores that I buy to like upcycle or to modify in some ways. And then, I was just looking at like the sheer amount of that kind of stuff that I have, and I'm like, oh, I could use this for the fabric. But, if you keep doing it and then you don't make time to actually make those things, then you just basically have a pile of stuff that is taking up space in your house. So I would like to get better at that. And also, using things that I already have, even if it's not the perfect thing. So like, for example, I really wanted to make some sort of Margiela inspired, like some kind of like deconstructed, like printed high top Converse, or like high top sneakers. And I wanted to DIY those, and I was, on the lookout for a pair of Converse that I could sort of pick up to thrift, and then do something, like tear them apart and do something crazy to them. And then, I realized that I did actually have a pair of Converse that my dog ate a million years ago, like ate the tongue of it, and like they were a bit trashed. And I was just like, well, instead of buying something, I kind of wanted a pair in black, but I was like, instead of buying something new, or well, not new but still thrifted, but something else to sort of bring into my life, that's the right color that I'm looking for, why don't you use this as a base instead? Like, it's almost there, but it's not perfectly there, but I think you can still make it work and get the same vibe. And so I'm trying to like lean towards that, of like looking at the materials that I already have, and even if it's not perfect, not going out and trying to find like the perfect thing. And I during the pandemic, I really went down like I became like an anti-capitalist, anti-work truther. Like, I think I have softened a bit since then, but I don't think that we can be sustainable in the systems that are currently in place. I feel this very strongly about like recycling and all of these sort of like show, like, it's a signal to the world that you're a good person, right? If you're being sustainable and you're being eco-conscious and all of those things. But I do strongly believe that 95% of the waste in the world is created by corporations, and I think that until we stop the monetary incentives or break down the sort of capitalist, processes that are creating this incredible amount of waste and pollution, I don't think that anything that we do as an individual, it makes any difference. It doesn't. It's like a drop in an ocean of impact. And so I think individual people are pitting, and I think it's by design, isn't it, that we're just pitting ourselves against each other, and we're like, oh well, that person's not eco-conscious because they didn't do this, and so we're fighting amongst ourselves and not actually looking at the people that can make the most amount of impact. Now that doesn't mean that I'm like burning plastic in my backyard. Why am I using so many American terms in my garden? Sorry, I work with Americans, so I watch a lot of like American media, so I feel like I say things like sweater and trash can and backyard all the time. But yeah, I'm not out there being the worst ecologically that I can be, but at the same time, like isn't there some crazy statistic that 70% of the things that we've recycled don't end up getting recycled anyway? Like all of it just feels so pointless, and it feels like a scam. And yes, I'm concerned about my carbon footprint, but at the same time, why would it matter when all of those private jets coming out of the Super Bowl, they've created more waste than I could ever do in my lifetime. And so I don't know. I think that I could be absolutely perfect, but I still wouldn't move the needle. And yes, would I like all of society to change and for all of us to not need to constantly be buying things? And would I like for myself to not constantly feel the need to be buying things to be fulfilled? Yes, obviously, yes. But I think I am aware of the society that I live in, and I can only do. So why are you hiding? Also, I think that when you create art and when you create fashion, and particularly in sewing as well, I think those are very wasteful hobbies. I think the process of creating art is wasteful because you need to get better at it. And so you need to fail and then make things that don't work. And then those are wasteful. But I still think that art is valuable. And I still think that waste is justified. Those are my very complex thoughts on sustainability and crafting. I just don't want anyone to feel that bad. I just think I think there's so much more that we need to worry about than whether your knitting hobby is, the best thing for the planet, because it's not your knitting hobby that's gonna kill the planet. I just don't think it is. What's your favorite yarn? Excellent question. I think my favorite ever, it would be something Nordic. Like I love Campus. Campus 2-ply is a yarn that's actually made for weaving, but it's beautiful and rustic and just absolutely stunning. And it's my desert island yarn. I really love, Hilsvåg, Hjellholt, Tuku wool. I recently tried Tuku wool and I really, really love that. I think all of those would be one of my favorite yarns. I have not knit with one yet, but my favorite fiber in the world is lamb's wool. I own a lot of thrifted jumpers that are lamb's wool, and the way it wears, the way there's a soft halo, the way it kind of feels like cashmere, but it's still more rustic. Lamb's wool is, I love it so much. And I would really, really love to knit a full something with lamb's wool. I have now bought a skein of Le Petit lamb's wool by Bichet Buche, and I think that would be really, really lovely knitted into a jumper. But I haven't knit a full thing with it. In fact, I've knit 2 rows of a jumper with it. So I would definitely, I can't vouch for it, but I think that would be one of my favorites. What is your profession? Something with fashion? No, I wish. Thank you for thinking that. so lovely. But no, I am not that cool. I work in tech. I work in trust and safety for a ed tech company. I'm sure if you look me up on LinkedIn, you can figure out which one. I needed a job out of college. I studied psychology, and I had a very weird, vague plan that I wanted to work in video game design. But I wanted to be like a creative director in video games, and I just thought that my bachelor's degree didn't seem to matter that much because I looked at like a couple of career paths of people that were creative directors for places like Riot Games or whatever, and they all had very strange paths to get there. So I chose the thing that I was the most organically interested in, and I chose psychology. And then I think by the time that I actually entered the world of work, I was like, I'm not sure that I would still want to do that. So yes, I studied psychology, but I knew I didn't want to be a therapist. And then when I finished college and I needed a job so that I could pay rent, started working for Accenture. Accenture for YouTube, using my French language. It's like a big thing that happens in Ireland, that you work for like a vendor company, and they usually hire language specialists, and you work for one of the bigger tech companies but subcontracted through them. And by a fluke, I was put into the copyright team. So we did copyright takedowns for YouTube. I think my statute of limitations, or my like NDA or whatever I signed, has probably run out by now, so I can say this on the internet. And yeah, it's something about the copyright and the real legal aspect really like sparked something in me, and I just find it really, really interesting. And then when I started working for a tech company proper, like actually contracted with them, I started off in support, but then I fell back into trust and safety because I just really enjoy being like legally adjacent, and also I get to see like a lot of very strange things. Like trust and safety is just like the weird part of any company. You just get to see like strange stuff, people doing bad. You get to be the bad guy, the bad cop. So yeah, that's my day to day. I work remotely. My company is headquartered in San Francisco, so I tend to go there or somewhere in America about once a year. And yeah, it pays the bills. It's not, I think my creative fulfillment comes from this and comes from, the things that I do extracurricularly. It's not the work of my life, but I think it's interesting enough that I don't get bored, and the people I work with are lovely, so that helps. What's my current color obsession? I'm really liking orange. I really like orange generally, but just I recently bought this shirt that's a very specific shade of orange, like sort of pale sunset, but still really, really bright, and I really like that. I'm really into burgundy. I used to hate burgundy because it was my mum's favorite color, and therefore I thought it was not cool. But suddenly, I don't know, I feel like burgundy's having a big moment, or like maroon or whatever. Like I like the purpley ones and I like the more reddish ones. But yeah, I'm really obsessed with burgundy, and brown as well. I'm really enjoying wearing brown at the moment. And then more recently, a colour I used to hate and never would wear and thought was very uncool was teal. And then suddenly out of nowhere, I'm like really into teal. I think it's really nice as like an accent colour. But yeah, that's the colours. How many hours do I generally dedicate to crafts a week? That's a good question. I think not as many as you would think. Or maybe more than you would think. I don't know. Given how slowly I knit, we've done one decrease since we've been talking. I didn't put a stitch marker in, but I could tell you I've done probably about. Where's the decrease? Probably done about that much. I tend in a week, in like a working week, I I used to knit a lot during meetings, but I found that I participate in meetings a lot more now. Like I'm the one speaking, and so I find it difficult to talk and knit at the same time. Like this is okay, but I don't know. I just recently I haven't been knitting as much in meetings, so I don't really knit during the day. And then after work, generally I try to do yoga immediately as I finish work, and then sometimes I tend to work quite late because I do work with the US, so I'll often be logging off at like 7 or sometimes a bit later than that. So I don't have a ton of time before I like make dinner, and then usually after I make dinner I don't really do anything like actively creative after that. Like I'll sit down and I'll watch something in front of the TV, and then maybe I'll knit in front of the TV, but I won't go to my sewing machine and start sewing after dinner. I could, but I don't. Recently I'm sewing a lot of things for my upcoming trip, so I have been finishing work, doing yoga, and then going straight to the sewing machine and sewing for like an hour before doing dinner. But most of the time that won't happen. I also have to find time in my life to like clean and take the dogs out for walks and do other things. But yeah, usually I'll have like an hour or two or 3, depending on how late I go to bed, after dinner to knit, and then maybe a couple of hours scattered here and there throughout the week. And then during the weekend, mostly mostly in the day I will go out and I'll be like out and about somewhere. So I don't tend to knit more on the weekends. It would be very rare for me to sort of spend a full day just crafting. But usually it's because I have a deadline. So I'd say like, if I'm doing 2 hours a day in the week and then maybe like 4 hours a day at the weekends, then I'm not very good at maths. That's like maybe like 15, 16-ish hours a week, which is not bad. But yeah, I definitely distinguish between like active crafting, so like things I have to think about, things I have to plan out. Like for example, last night I was embroidering this. Yeah, it's cute, looks cute. But this I feel like I did it in front of the TV, but it's more active because I have to look at it and I have to, like draw out the thing. And so I wasn't really paying attention to what I was watching. So yeah, this to me is like active crafting, and then anything at the machine is active. And then this is like more passive, where I'll just do it wherever, or I'll take knitting with me whilst I'm traveling or whatever. And yeah, I find that I don't get any enjoyment from this sort of like passive knitting anymore. I think it used to be something that I found really relaxing, but now I do it because it needs to be done, but I don't necessarily find it like super interesting. So I struggle to get those hours in the same way that I used to. So like I think that like making the sleeve, I really have to force myself to do it, whereas I think before I would have like sped through it. What's your dream dupe project? Such a good question. I think the Andaughter jumper I'm making at the moment is a big dream. I don't know, maybe I should look at my Pinterest board. I think like also the hey Smush face. I think the Simone Rocha dress I was recreating was one of those as well. I think any of those like very intricate designer dresses, I think are things that, like I'll stare at on my Pinterest board for forever. Things that I am scared to do, like I think that, like a dream would be like, was it maybe Dior back in like 2012? I probably will need to find some reference images, but they did all of these like very gorgeously like tambour embroidered embroidered like dresses, something like that, that's like that intricate, and would take hundreds of hours. I think would be like a dream recreation. it's the type of thing that I look at and I'm like, oh, I can't recreate that easily enough. Like, I feel like my brain is, if you know Rachel Makesy, she often says that she really enjoys cosplay and she really enjoys the things that she makes on her channel because her brain is engineered to sort of like recreate things. And I think mine is the exact same. Like if I see something, I'm already thinking about how I would make it and like how I would recreate it. And I think that's the thing that drives me forward in most creative endeavors is that figuring out how I would go about it. And also like learning all of the skills that I need to learn to figure it out. And yeah, I think there are some things that I love that are designer that I'm like, that's too far. Like I can't learn that cheaply enough. Like I could, but it would take many, many hours and years and it's just not worth it for me. There was this one I think it's Valentino skirt that I saw in a magazine when I was like 10, and I kept the magazine clipping, and it's this like very heavily like appliqued suede skirt with all of these bright different colors. And when I was in New York, I went to Mood Fabrics when I was 16 because my sister was living in New York at the time and I got to go over and visit her, which I was very, very lucky to do. And I bought like a piece of suede, like a piece of cow, like a green piece of cow, so that I could make this skirt. And then basically I realized that I don't know how to sew leather. There's so many things that I can think of, but yeah, and that also brings me on to, do you fear knit? Do you fear no knit? Is there any knits that I'm scared of making? Knitting wise, no. I think it's not, I don't have any fear. I think I just have, I just know things that will be too much effort for what they're worth. Like I've done colour work, like stranded colour work in tarja, I've done cables and I've done lace. There are more complicated versions of all of the things that I've done. There's very complicated colour work, there's very complicated lace, there's very complicated cables. I'm not scared about doing them. I think I just don't want to because I don't think that the effort is worth the reward. And yeah, it's like, it's not fear, it's just like, I'm like, oh, that would just be really annoying, and so I don't want to do it. I think maybe the one thing I do have fear around it, and it's not fear, it's like, I feel like I could figure it out, but I just wouldn't do it, is knitting colourwork socks, because I just think that it's a sock, it's going on your foot. Nobody ever sees my socks. It's just so easy to get wrong, and like you could do all of that work and still not be able to get it over your foot. And then if you can get it over your foot, it's probably like loose because it's too much. Anyway, colourwork socks I think is one that I'm just like, I wouldn't do. Not that I'm scared of them. I am maybe a little bit scared. I'm scared of spending all of that time and not getting something that I can wear. And then also that I'm not going to see. Dream holiday destination to just buy yarn or fabric. For yarn, I mean, Japan is an obvious one because of the Noro. I love Noro. Or Norway. I would love to do like a Hillsvåg and the other mills that are up there. I don't know, like a mill tour. I would love that. I think I went to Unravel recently, and it was my first yarn festival, and I didn't have a good time. I didn't have a terrible time, but like I wasn't really excited because I felt like it just wasn't tickling something that I like getting cheaper yarns, I like getting more rustic yarns, I like getting a good price, and I felt like the festival wasn't really catering to what I like in what makes me very happy. And yeah, I feel like going to a mill and getting like mill ends and things like that would be like peak. Yeah, I think probably like Norway and Sweden and like Finland are probably like the places I covet the most in terms of like yarns. A brief history of how you learned to knit and sew. I have always done creative things. Since I was a kid, I've always like drawn and painted, and I've always like dabbled in like embroidery. I've always been interested in like upcycling clothes or making clothes. I was really scared of getting a sewing machine. I think I thought I just couldn't like wrap my head around it. But I was always hand sewing things. I don't know if I'll be able to find the photos now, but in France we have something called Mardi Gras, or like Mardi Gras, which is like they have in many, many countries, but that's like a carnival, and every year you would get dressed up in some kind of costume and you'd go to school and you'd wear a costume for the Mardi Gras, and every year it became like my personal mission to be the best at this costume, and it actually wasn't even about like winning the prizes or anything like that. It was like it just filled me full of so much joy to make these costumes, and they were always so elaborate. Like one year I was an iPod with like a computer chipboard whenever I took off the iPod costume. And then another year I was like, the mermaid that's sitting on the box, and then there's a pirate man that's, like the illusion. And I think another year I was, I used a bike helmet to become an octopus, and I made like papier-mâché the octopus tentacles. And then I think my final year I was Padme from Star Wars. Don't ask me why. There was no logical thread between any of these costumes, but I was chronically online as a kid, and I would see these things online. I would like follow like costume message boards and things like that, and like on Tumblr and stuff I would be really into like cosplay, and so yeah, I've always really been interested in that. And then in December 2019, I got a sewing machine as a gift from my mum. And then the lockdown happened. And I was like, oh, okay, this is like a really good time to learn how to use this thing. And then during all of lockdown, we had a very long lockdown in Ireland. It was like the better part of a year we were in quarantine. So I had suddenly a lot of free time at the weekends and the evenings to learn how to sew. And so I think what I did that was quite interesting was that I didn't make patterns, because I don't think we had a printer. I didn't use patterns. I just used clothes that I already had, and then like tried to trace out like pattern pieces from those, or I would like self-draft things. And a lot of it was really, really terrible, like really awful. But I think you learn a lot very, very quickly from drafting things that way, rather than using patterns straight off the bat. So I think I got quite a good knowledge of like clothes construction and like garment construction from all of that work that I did. And I really, really enjoyed the patterning process particularly. Even before like I was good at like making like a seam that was straight, like I felt like I was really developing those patterning skills. So I would recommend, if you want to get into sewing, to challenge yourself to be okay with your projects being crap for like a really long time, but know that those skills, you're building the right skills that I think will be useful later on. And then I started knitting. I never thought I would knit. It was not a thing I was really interested in. But then as a fluke, I watched Florence, what Florence made. Florence's makes. Florence's Miller's What I Made in 2021 video, I think it was. And yeah, I watched her full yeah, I just watched the video on a whim and I was just like blown away. I was like, this is the coolest thing that a person could possibly do. And I was so obsessed with it. Because I always drew a line, you know, I was like, oh, I can make a dress, I can make a shirt, I can make all of these things, but I can't like knit. So I'm just like, and then it just opened up this whole other world for me where I was like, wow, the possibilities are endless. I really didn't know anything so outside of like what she said in the video. So I was just like, cool. She made a sweater number 14 in a grey coloured yarn using drops yarn. I'm gonna make a grey coloured sweater number 14. You know, like I basically like copy pasted her what I made in 2021 video, and I just basically made everything that she made for the first year. And I think it was good. Like it, before I started applying like my own taste to things, I think it was like a good way to sort of get into the hobby. And I think it's, you know, it's my ADHD adjacent brain just got so fixated. Like I was living and breathing knitting. I was watching hours and hours and hours of podcasts. I think that also accelerates my learning a lot, in that like when I'm very fascinated about something, I just consume so much media around it. It was the same with sewing. I would just watch hours and hours and hours of sewing videos, and I really learn by watching other people do things. So I would like pick up, like without having been taught it formally, I would pick up, you know, like tips and tricks and things. And yeah, I was just watching hours and hours and hours of knitting podcasts and things like that. And through that became quite knowledgeable relatively quickly. I mean, relatively knowledgeable, obviously, you know, I'm still a noob in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, I was just consuming so much content around it. And like now I don't as much at all. I really find that my YouTube consumption has gone a lot down and I'm not consuming as much media around it. Yeah, I think it was that like hyperfixation at the beginning that really sort of propelled me into extreme crafting. And also throughout that process, you know, I think I really learned how much joy it gives me and how much purpose it can give a life where, you know, maybe my career isn't that fulfilling, but you know, I'm still getting oodles of joy and sort of fulfillment from making beautiful things and curating like a really like beautiful space. And yeah, anyway, I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir. I'm sure you're all a lot like me, but that's my story. We might have to split this into two. This is getting long as. My personal style and how thrifting and knitting and sewing fits in. Yeah, I feel like I could be better about this. I think when I get dressed, I have my personal style in mind. And then when I'm making, I have my like knitting and sewing and things that will be rewarding for me in mind. And I'm trying to make these meet a lot more. But I still struggle with that, where often I'll make something and then I'm like, I'm not sure how it doesn't fit into my style. I don't get it so much with sewing, because I think I'm not as drawn into the like, oh, there's this pattern that I see other people making and so I really want to make that pattern. I think often I'm actually trying to recreate clothes that I'd really like to buy when I'm sewing. But when I'm knitting, I find that I'm trying to use yarn that I have, or that, you know, there's a certain type of yarn that I want to work with, or I see something on somebody else, and I think that's what more inspires me than things that I want to buy. So yeah, I'm working on it. I'm not aiming for, I think a lot of people like aim for like 100% me-made wardrobe. That's not really, it's not something I aspire to at all. I would like to wear more things that I've made. I'm, you know, completely comfortable with having like 80% thrifted, or, you know, like I've made jeans in the past and I wear jeans that I've made, but I probably would still continue to buy jeans because I think it's most of the time not really worth the effort. And same for like, you know, this jumper that I'm wearing, it's a cashmere Uniqlo jumper that I've had for many, many, many years. And I wouldn't dream of making something like this because it's a really fine gauge, it's cashmere, it would cost a bomb. I think this cost me like $40 in the sale. So like I'm not looking to replace something like this. I'm looking to fill a different gap in my wardrobe with the things that I make. And same with like, you know, I'm not interested in sewing basics. I know a lot of people like really like the honey girl tee or like the, you know, patterns like that, or like really enjoy sewing pajamas. Pajamas I can probably get behind, but I think I like shite. I just broke the yarn. I really like making statement pieces when I'm sewing, and then using more basic pieces that I bought to sort of fit around that. And I definitely have hard stops of things where I'm like, it's not worth it for me to make this. I would rather buy it. I think especially with thrifting as well, it's very cheap. Well, less and less, but it's very accessible. And so, I mean, it can take a while to find something that you're looking for, but I think if you're thinking of like why would you ever make a men's shirt when you can thrift 1,000 men's shirts for like £4? Do you know what I mean? Like not actually 1,000 of them for £4, but 1,000 of them for £4 each. Like I think there are things like that where I'm just like, I would have to have a really big reason to make something from scratch when the piece is already there and sort of like made and very readily accessible. Now, is it as easy to find like an 100% wool coat in the style that I want in the thrift store? No, so I might make that. And because probably I find the process of making a coat very enjoyable, so I would, you know, like really appreciate doing that. I think it's like it's a balance for me of like, is it worth making it, and can I find it relatively easily and cheaply? I also really hate paying full price for anything, so that's often why I make things, is because I'm like, you know, I see the value in this designer item, but I also see how I could recreate it myself, and so I'm gonna opt to do that instead of buying it. Rebecca, you kill me with this question. Your biggest pet peeve in the knitting community? I have so many. But I mean, most, you know, I'm just like an easily irritated person. Most of the pet peeves that I have are more around like things that people say, like specific phrases or words. Like I get really irrationally annoyed. Like it's not normal to be annoyed by this. But like I get very annoyed when people say finished object, and I get really annoyed when I say finished object, because it's like some template from that we all decided that a knitting podcast has to be in this format, and nobody seems to have found like a better format to do it in, and so everyone just says finished object, and it just doesn't, and like UFO and all of these things like that. Obviously like UFO I get a bit more, but I'm like, why is it a finished object? Can't it just be like a finished piece or like a finished thing or jumper? Or like I understand why, but it just really annoys me that we all do the same things. And it creeps into like my vernacular as well, because I, you know, consume it so much. I try really, really hard not to say finished object, but it just happens anyway. And sweater as well. I hate that I say sweater, because I'm, you know, I speak British English, and so there's no reason for me to say sweater. But, you know, it's the petite knit sweater number 15, you know, my favorite things knitwear, that, you know, it kind of like creeps in. So it also really irritates me. I mean, a lot of these are also like YouTuber pet peeves. It really irritates me when people say like, oh, I've got this for you today. I have like, you know, I have these progress shots, you know, I have like shots of my week and I have them for you. Like there's something so presumptuous that like your audience is waiting for you to post these things that, you know, that you think that they like. Anyway, they're all really silly. I think like language is often we don't really think about the way that we say things. And I am the most guilty of this because you don't know how many ums and so's and etc. that I cut out of videos because what's the one that I do all the time that's really annoying? I use an incredible amount, and I try and cut them out as much as possible because it annoys me so much to listen to. So yeah, I'm the biggest culprit, but I also really like notice when people say things that annoy me. Specifically about the knitting community, I don't know. I don't like it when people get annoyed that people use petite knit patterns. I just think it's such a stupid hill to die on. I get that, you know, you may be looking for somebody that's using something more unique, or like you want to hear about patterns that are lesser known, but I don't know. I just don't really get it. I think you can make something really interesting using a petite knit pattern without it being like, I feel like I use a lot of petite knit patterns, but I use them as leaping off points for things that are more interesting, and I use them because I know about them, because they're accessible, because I know the style of writing, I know what I'm going to get, and because I see them a lot. So it's, yeah, and I don't know, I think if you're like, oh, you use so many petite knit patterns, I'm like, yeah, okay, what of it? If you said that you use so many petite knit patterns and your style is really boring, then I would get that. But I also think knitters in general, you know, that I meet at knit nights, and also knitters that do podcasts, I think, is it a pet peeve? I guess it's a pet peeve. I just think they're too safe. Like, I just find that people are very scared to make things like go off book in a pattern. Or I was talking to somebody recently and they were like, oh, I would never do colour work. I think the most colour work, or I would never modify a pattern. I think the most I've ever modified a pattern is to add stripes where there aren't stripes. And I think that blew my mind, because I was just like, that's not modifying a pattern. Like, to me, a pattern is a set of numbers that then I can add whatever I want to. And you know, if I add lace to it, I mean, obviously lace will change your gauge, but if I add like a texture to it, or if I add color work, or if I add, you know, something like that, like, I feel like a pattern is like an endless set of possibilities. And I think it annoys me that people don't branch out more or aren't more brave, because also, if you sew compared to knitting, knitting is the easiest thing to like unravel and then just start again. Like, it's like endlessly forgiving. And like, unless you're steeking, I just think you can always like frog and restart, whereas sewing is way more high stakes than that. So I don't know. I think y'all need to branch out a bit more and just be a bit braver. Just like more problem solving. Like, I feel like I see a lot, knitters tend to be like very rigid. Like, they're like, well, this is the way that you do ribbing. And what was it? Recently I made like a stockinette fold over rib, or like at least button band, on a baby cardigan. And I was just like, I feel like most knitters would be like, well, you can't do that because it's not really, there's no patterns that do it, like, it's not an established way of doing things. And I was just kind of like, well, why can't I do it? Like, why, who said? You know, I often do things that I think no rule book would say that you could do. Like sometimes I'll do a long tail cast on and I'll run out of yarn at the end, I'll run out of tail, and so I'll just move it to the other side, and then I'll do a like I'll just cast on more stitches from the working yarn from the other side, and it's fine, and it always works out. Like I think I just do like really random shit, and I'm like, why are there so many rules, and why is it so rigid? Like I think knitting can be really creative, and I feel like crocheters are a lot more like flexible in that way, and I feel like knitters are just like you have to do it this way because otherwise it won't turn out right, and I'm like, well, it might still turn out right, just try it. Anyway, okay, and final question, and by far the most asked, how is London, how's life in London, how's your breakup going, that kind of thing. Yeah, basically all about my move. So if you didn't know, I moved from Ireland to London in December. Yeah, it's going well, I think. I'm only like coming up to 3 months in the flat. There's loads still that I'd love to do. I moved to an area in South London that I didn't know. My sister used to live in, a very long time ago, she lived in Brixton, and then she lived in Peckham for a long time. And so I'm quite familiar with South London, but, and I've been coming to London at least once a year, sometimes twice or 3 times a year, for years, since I was a kid, basically. So I'm very familiar with London, but I've never lived here. And so it's interesting what's familiar and it's interesting what isn't. Like I think like Ireland is a very similar country in a lot of ways. Like even, if we're even just talking about like supermarkets, like Tesco, like there are a lot of things that I recognize and that I feel are very similar, and there are a lot of things where I'm like, whoa, this is so different. It's a lot to get used to. I haven't moved country in about 12 years, so it's a big change. I really feel like I'm getting to grips with my neighborhood now. It's not very London-y. It's quite far out, so it doesn't really, I'm not like in Hoxton or in Islington or anywhere like very central, but yeah, it's just very interesting. I love the diversity straight off the bat. Like I think I love that. That's one thing Ireland has more of now, but a lot less diversity than London. I think the Asian supermarkets I'm just blown away by. I've always been interested in Asian food, and I've always loved Asian supermarkets, but they're not that great in Ireland, and there's just so many of them here. And I'm quite close to a wing yip, so like I'm in heaven in that sense. And yeah, just generally like a lot of things like that. Like the food is so much better, and your access to like really good coffee and matcha and things like that is so much better. It's really expensive. It's like Dublin's really expensive already, but I didn't anticipate how much more expensive London would be. Obviously, like there are things that are better, like the rent is better, and you're taxed less, and there are a lot of things that are a lot cheaper here. But I'm just continuously shocked, like when I'm buying cheese, like I just really miss like European cheese prices, or the vet bills. Like I'm like, it's minimum like 85 quid every single time I go to the vet, and it used to be 65 euro, in Ireland. So yeah, that's a transition financially where I'm like, wow, this is not what I'm used to. I have a relatively high salary, but it just doesn't go as far here. God, I have made a mess of these decreases whilst doing this. The attitudes towards dogs are like night and day. People are so friendly towards dogs here. People are okay around dogs in Ireland, but there's not the same level of acceptance. It's just, yeah, it's night and day. And just even being able to bring dogs in certain places and cafes and stuff, it's just like so much more accessible in that sense. So that was actually one of the big reasons why I moved. was because of how difficult it was to find a place to live with 2 dogs. It's still, I mean, it's still not easy. I still faced, you know, when I was looking at places to rent, I was still getting a fair amount of like, oh, no dogs allowed here. But, you know, at least estate agents replied to me. At least, you know, they pretended to be nice. Like that's very, very different. And yeah, sorry, how is it going? I think it's good. It's the first time I've lived alone in my life, which is really fun and also really lonely. And it's, you know, like it's been December, then January, then February. It's very, very quiet months of the year. I'm not really meeting a ton of people. I was very lucky to have had a lot of people come visit me in January. And I was, yeah, so happy that, you know, actually all of my weekends were pretty much booked up and I was having a really nice time. But all of those people then went home. And so I'm not like, there's not a lot of opportunities for me to meet people. You know, I've joined a new knit night and I will definitely do more like social activities when I get back from Japan. But also I work from home, so like, you know, most of the time I'm just in the house, not really speaking to anyone. So it's a transition for sure. Like, I keep thinking about the fact that I'm probably the first woman, like generation of women in my family that could financially, you know, live by myself in my 30s and support myself in this way, and you know, live in a 2-bedroom house with a garden in London. And yeah, I think I feel very, very fortunate in that way, and I'm just really enjoying discovering what living alone means. And I think, I don't know, ask me again in 6 months. I think it's hard to be like, oh, I'm having so much fun when, you know, like most of the time the only people I'm speaking to are my dogs. It's like, I think I wish I had more people to go to things with. And, you know, like I obviously, like, I've met people, but I think it's very different having friends, like real friends that you can rely on and that, you know, you can ask for favors and stuff like that. It's that stuff takes time, and I'm nowhere near that. So, and the breakup, I don't know. It's kind of, it's not that it's old news, but like it's been a while since we sort of officially separated, like since the summer, and so I've had some time to process. Having said that, I think I am not very good at like fully processing things head on, and so I think I'm still storing like a lot of stress, also the stress from like moving and you know, not having a place to live and bring these guys and stuff. Like all of that was very, I mean, maybe traumatic is a big word, but it was a big upheaval, and I'm still sort of finding space to sort of release that and like look at that and like let that out of my body. And I think I still have a lot of things that I want to confront and that I want to sort of process emotionally. And I'm just giving myself a ton of time to do so. And I'm not rushing it. And, you know, that's also the luxury that I have whilst living alone, is that I don't have to be anyone to anything to anyone, and I don't have to be a certain way. And sometimes my evenings are, you know, drinking a bottle of wine and crying, and that's cool. And that's fine. My poor dogs. I also, you know, there's a limit to how much I want to say publicly, but I feel like it was the right decision, and I feel like it will pay dividends in the future, but right now it feels quite hard. But I think even just having that trust that it will be better is a good sign, like it's a good thing. And you know, I'm very lucky that I really enjoy my own company. I love, like, I really enjoy being alone, and I really enjoy my own, my own space and my own company, and I have infinite things to occupy myself with. Just maybe not someone to bounce ideas off of anymore, but yeah, so in that sense, I think I'm doing okay. But yeah, ask me again in 6 months when I've got more of a foothold. And I think the summer here will be really fun. I'm very close to like a really big park where they do events and stuff, and when it's not raining every day, I'll probably spend more time in that park. And I think that's all of the questions. In terms of how much I knit, probably about that much. So yeah, not my most productive, but at least we got in a few rows today. Slightly concerned that this sleeve is quite small, which I think is a problem with this whole jumper. But yeah, thanks for spending all of that time with me. Let's do this again sometime. I hope you're having a lovely day wherever you are. Thank you for sending these questions my way. And yeah, if you were knitting on or working on something whilst you were watching this, let me know what it was. I'm always curious on what you guys are working on. And yeah, thank you so much. I hope you have a good day. All right, bye. Bye.